everybody, it's Rebecca here at Y Mermaids, and it's time for Monthly Recommendations. Monthly Recommendations is a Goodreads group created by Kayla Rain and Trina and Between Chapters, where every month we have a topic and we recommend books based on that topic. So this month's topic is survival stories. Now, I really like survival stories, whether they're dystopian survival stories or like post-apocalyptic survival stories or like whatever. I really like the idea of like man trying to survive whatever it is that is being thrown at him or her, whether it's, you know, the elements or other people or whatever. I really like it. It's interesting to me. So I have 12 books to recommend to you today in a number of different categories, so that's kind of exciting. But since there are a lot, let's just get going. The first category of survival stories that I'm going to talk about today are the post-apocalyptic survival story. There's something has wiped out the world and then now they're trying to cope with it. I have 3 books for you in this category. The first one is World War Z by Max Brooks, and this is the story of a post-apocalyptic zombie apocalypse. So it's really interesting because it's like little short narratives about how the world coped with the zombie apocalypse and the different strategies that they had. It's not really anything like the movie, but it's very interesting. It talks about what man would do to survive and how they kind of tried these different things, and it's just a really interesting, realistic approach to what would happen if zombies actually were real. So it's a really good one to start off with. Next one I'm going to recommend today is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is, again, post-apocalyptic. It's about this like traveling theater group in a post-apocalyptic world, but it's much more than that. It's kind of recognizing what we are as men and trying to rebuild a civilization, but it's also multi-narrative, back and forth in time kind of story. So you're following different people and you're kind of seeing how this plague has kind of affected society and what it's done, and it's just different people and what they do to try to survive this and try to find hope in all of that. This was one of my favorite books of all of last year, and so it definitely fits this category, and I was so excited to be able to mention it again. The third and final book in the post-apocalyptic survival category is Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis. If you've watched Trina's channel, then this is like her #1 recommended book. That's how I heard of it, that's why I read it, and it's definitely worth the hype that she gives it. It's about in a future world where water is kind of scarce now, and so if you have water, you have to defend it. If you don't have water, you have to try to find it. So it's a very interesting take on that idea, and it's just trying to survive in a world without water and trying to deal with all of that, and who do you trust and who do you not trust. And I definitely recommend it if you have not read it yet before. It's a duology, but I have not read the second one yet. My next category is real life survival stories. So both of these books are non-fiction stories, and they both actually deal with the Holocaust. The first one is Night by Elie Wiesel, and this is a true story of a boy who went into the Holocaust. It is beautiful, it is touching, it's poignant, it's sad, it's wonderful. I've read it multiple times, and every single time I get something new out of it, and it really touches me deep in my core. So if you haven't read it yet, then I definitely recommend it. The other nonfiction survival story that I have for you today is called A Train in Winter by Carolyn Moorhead. Now this is about the women during World War II in France, and during the Nazi occupation of France, these women were against that, and so some of them got sent to concentration camps, and it's very interesting. The first section of it is very dry and historical, and it tells you like the history of each of these women, but the second part of it goes when they go to the camps, and it's very interesting of what these women did to survive and how they coped with everything, and it's just, I mean, it's just really interesting and really good, and I definitely recommend it if you're interested in World War II stories, and the real stories too. So my next section is my largest section, and this is the fighting to the death / on the run. I kind of combined the two. Some of them work together and whatnot, so it's the biggest section, and this is the section that's going to include such classics such as The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. If you haven't read The Hunger Games, like, you need to do that immediately, because this is a really good book series. I've taught this book series before, I really enjoy it. So she's literally fighting for her survival in a world, in a land where they don't have anything. So they're put in this arena with nothing and they have to try to survive. And so it's definitely all about like foraging and trying to survive, but even not in the arena, even in her real life outside of that, she's still trying to survive based on nothing. And it's really it's a good take on that. It's really interesting, and then the further books in the series just kind of expand on that and talk about not just surviving in the games, but surviving in a culture and in a society that is against her in every single way. It wouldn't be a recommendation on my channel if it didn't include Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So this one is very similar to the Hunger Games in the aspect that our main character Darrow is in an arena type thing. It's a school, not an arena, but he and his fellow classmates are fighting to the death. But it's also more about leadership and war than it is like one-on-one type of thing. It's more of a, like, I think Game of Thrones style with like houses battling against each other, but they're put again with nothing and they have to try to survive off the land and kill each other off or take each other hostages and whatnot. And so it's just really good. If you haven't read it, I have lots of videos telling you why you should. Next up is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this is more survival. It's a futuristic society and they're living on this planet that I don't remember the name of, and these like corporations come and basically bomb them, and so they're on the run fighting to try to survive from this other corporation that's chasing them. There's a lot more to the survival aspect of this story, and it kind of goes even further, but I don't want to say anything because it will spoil parts of it for you. But know that this entire book is told through hacked documents, which just makes it that much more exciting. The next one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It's the only one that I really felt fit perfectly into this topic of survival, because Harry and Ron and Hermione in the Deathly Hallows are on the run. They're trying to find Voldemort and his Horcruxes and take them all out. And so it's just, you know, they're fighting, they're surviving, they're put into a lot of situations where they have to fight against other people, especially towards the end, but they're also on the run for a lot of it, so I just had to throw it in here because what's a recommendation video without Harry Potter? And my last one in this category is Room by Emma Donoghue. Now this one is not a futuristic society or anything like that. I kind of struggled with where I would put it, but I decided to put it here because it just kind of fit the best of the different categories. But Room is about a young woman, she's about 25 or so, and her young son who is 5, and they live in a shed basically, and they can't leave it. They're being held hostage. So, you know, there's an escape plan that kind of hatches and everything, and then they have to figure out what it means to survive outside of this, because the story is narrated from the point of view of the 5-year-old who has never left the room, has never known anything outside of the room to exist, and so it's really, really, really captivating, and it's completely different from any of the other books that I'm recommending today. And finally, my last category of survival is Man vs. Elements, and I have 2 books in this category. The first one is Life of Pi, which is the story about a guy named Pi, it's a very religious kind of story where he talks about different religions, but that's not solely all of it, but it's a big part of it. And so Pi is basically stranded on a boat. He survives a shipwreck and lives on a boat with no company but a big giant tiger, and he has to survive on this boat for months and months and months until he can finally land up on shore, if he lands up on shore. And so will he survive? Will he not survive? What happens? How does he survive with the big giant tiger on the boat? It's really interesting. And the final book I have to recommend to you today is, of course, The Martian by Andy Weir, because what says survival more than a guy who is stranded on Mars and has to survive? Like, this book is all about survival, but it's all about humanity and what it means to humans to want to survive, and how humans come together to help other people and to help make them survive and help them survive. And it's just a really, really, really wonderful story. The movie is phenomenal as well. I highly recommend it. It is science fiction. Parts of it can get very dry with the science, but if you can just kind of overlook that the way I had to do, then you'll be fine, because it's amazing. So The Martian is so good. I mean, he's on Mars by himself. There's nobody around. He's the only one there on an entire planet. Well, those are all the books I have to recommend to you today for survival stories. If you have some good ones, let me know down in the comments what they are, because again, I really like survival stories. And if you want any more information on any of these, please let me know. Again, I'd be happy to give you that as well. So yeah, I guess that is it for me today. I'll see you next time.